Do you find it difficult to focus on your customers and even your own employees as you're juggling numerous vendors? Do you have more meetings with vendors than you can count? And do their reports filled with technical jargon make you feel clueless and frustrated? Such is the story of Nathan. Being at a car dealership, he's concerned about his store's digital marketing presence and invests most of his time dealing with vendors to promote his business and gain more sales and market share. Nathan is busy handling reports and reviewing them, not knowing what is happening on the advertising front and about his true ROI. Poor Nathan is worried but can't figure out a solution until he found BZ Consultants Group. BZ Consultants stepped in and was able to take the digital marketing vendor burden off Nathan's plate, giving him peace of mind that the best interest of the dealer was always top of mind. Being an unbiased third party, BZ Consultants always made sure to relay the reports in easy, relatable, and actionable ways so that Nathan could best utilize the data. Now, Nathan can focus on what he really wanted, the customer experience and growth. By being your digital marketing business partner, BZ Consultants Group will remove the hassle trying to hold your vendors accountable and increase your productivity with the time you will now have armed with true data. Together, we make it possible because your success is our goal.
Welcome into the Furniss Fast Lanes of Facts, Not Feelings. We have made it. I just spit all over my microphone, all over my Mac, but we're good. Oh, it has been a crazy ass week. We were just talking offline, like, holy, what? I say this a lot lately. I just gonna at this point say it's like Q4. I don't know what's going on, but it is absolutely insane. And Russell, hello to you. Hello to Peter. And man, we have got an incredible group up here right now. And sorry, Jeff, I got to read this here. I feel like we're going to have to be on our best. Okay, Jeff, have you not seen the show? When are we ever on our best behavior?
It's Friday, friends. No.
Yeah, yes, definitely Friday. And this is a topic that I honestly have to go back and count. I think this is the 6th episode that dropped yesterday about the GLBA, FTC madness. And well, not after that opening. No, you never have to behave. But this is such an important topic. And April, if you don't know April, she's right down there. The beautiful. It's not Tom, although Tom is very nice and great looking. It is April. She reached out and just goes, "Hey, God, I'm one. I think I'm ready to hurt people. Number 2, you got to help me." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do this." So what I love
and don't mess with April, okay?
Yeah,
don't mess with April.
I work out, man. Yeah, you know.
Look at those freaking guns right there. Like,
there you go.
Gun show? I think so.
That's right.
So yes, let's just dive into this right now. And we've got Russell, hello to you. We've got Jeff, hello to you.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Everybody.
If I missed anybody, just know that I love you, and you guys know I love you at this point. So as always, throw in your comments as you're doing right now, any questions you have, because this is such a needed topic. And apparently 5 episodes was enough. We need to keep doing this. And we have a dealer on. We've got Tom Kline, who was a dealer at one point and now who's not a lawyer, just speaks like one, and Brian in spirit because he is in London right now. So I don't, he may have won on this one. Steve, yep, that sounds about right. It was actually coming back was through Detroit, but it was ORD, ATL, PBI, and then PBI, DTW, ORD. Yes. So yeah. That exactly is my rate right there. So April, because you started this whole chaos of like, hey, let's do another episode on this and poke the bear a little bit. But I say that tongue in cheek because it is such a needed topic. And we're just sitting in this like vicious cycle of nothing getting done. Yeah. I'm going to kick it to you on what was one of your main takeaways of the episode that just dropped.
You know, the main takeaway, which is still, and I'm really, really hopeful that people, if you haven't watched this episode, please watch this episode. This is a plea, a beg, a please, vendors, help me get to the finish line. And typically when I call a vendor, they help me right away. I don't have those issues, right? But in this space, nobody seems to know who's responsible, who to talk to. I just get this, or I get nothing at all because nobody actually knows. And as we sit here today, literally almost at Thanksgiving, it is my number one pain point is just whom is the person who is going to help me check mark the box that says, yes, I have contractually obligated you and you have gone through the checklist and said, yes, I'm compliant. That is a big pain point for dealers. And I think that vendors, you need to start asking the questions. You need to help your dealer partners. If we're really a partner, help them figure out how they can get to the finish line on doing their obligated part. There's a lot more that is to take away, which is what is really happening and what really is compliance and stuff. But from my perspective, the dealers care about one thing, doing what they have to do to ensure that they are check marking the boxes that need to be checked. And they cannot do it alone. They need the vendors to help. So this is my 100th plea, please.
Only 100th?
Big, and maybe more, give or take. But I so appreciate, you, Brooke, and Tom, and everyone else who's giving dealers like myself a platform to say, please help us. We just can't do this without them.
Amen to that. And I am curious. So since we filmed it and recorded this, which is a month, probably 2 months ago at this point.
2 months ago, yeah.
2 months ago. Have you heard back from the individuals that were ghosting you? Just curious.
Most of them no. And even the ones that I reached back out to, they're like, oh, we either A, they don't think they're part of it, or B, they really just don't know how to help. The people that are trying to help, they're kind of getting pushback from their higher ups who don't know how to help. So yes. I think that there's just this systemic problem across the board, which is why I want to come out and speak publicly about it, to try to appeal to people who have a lot more clout with people maybe further up the chain in some of these vendor organizations, to start saying, hey, wait a minute, it's our responsibility to help the dealers and push back out there.
Amen. And we've got Peter saying dealers need an internal compliance officer to ensure protection and to hold vendors accountable. And Peter, to that point, I'm sure I've said this more times I can count. Once you hire that person, that is that person's only job. Not, hey, by the way, go take a BD, go oversee the BDC. Oh, go take care of social, actually take digital marketing, and hold all the vendors accountable on top of everything else. Like, that's not, when you hire someone as internal compliance, that is their only job. It's a full-time job. April and anyone that's in the dealership right now is trying to, on every other hat that they're wearing, on top of that, go wrangle the freaking cats to say, oh, wait, you still have or talk the octopus over here. You're doing so much and being on top of that, trying to do everything else. And then Russell, I just want to point this out real quickly, because this is a big sticking point with me, a bit of a pain point. I've heard it said by April and many others that are vendors and vendor partners. There is a huge difference. There's a massive, massive difference. Yes. And I will guarantee, oh, hey, Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
Oh, yeah. So good to see you. And there's a massive difference between, I will guarantee you, those are collaborating and actually assisting with April. Even if it's like, hey, I don't know, at least they're responding back and being truthful with it versus just full out lying or hiding it or whatever it may be. So Tom, we're now going to go up to you. What was one of your main takeaways from the show that dropped yesterday?
Well, since it's dropped, there have been some activities that I think are important to throw out there. Two things in particular. One, I read an article yesterday that said more than 30% of dealerships haven't done anything on GLBA. I think that's probably conservative.
Yeah.
Folks, the deadline was June the 9th. And there's still a lot of confusion about what is and what isn't. In fact, in this particular article that I read, which I'm not going to tell you what the publication was, it said that it added some new things to things that I didn't know about. So I called a colleague this morning. I said, did I miss something, or is this article erroneous? And the article is erroneous, in short, is the conclusion we came to. So there's a lot of information here to digest. There's a lot of things that need to be done. There are a lot of action items, as April can attest to, for dealer groups. And if you haven't started, please do start. Feel free to pick up the phone and call any of the three of us, and we can answer some questions for you. And that's kind of part one, is if you haven't started, start. Part 2 is what I'm going to tell you is going to be a little motivation for you to start, which is I heard from an insider at a company. This is unofficial and unconfirmed. Those are all my disclaimers. That the FTC is finding its first dealership group, and this is a group that has more than 50 stores, so very, very big. And the story that I got from an employee at the group said, and they were doing a lot of secondary business, is that a customer didn't get done. The customer came back in to talk or complain, I'm not sure which, went to the salesman's desk. Her license was sitting on the salesman's desk, a copy of her license. So she got upset. She went to the FTC. The FTC came in, and here we are. Now, it usually takes a long time for this stuff to actually get out into the public and into the press where we know about it. But as I said, unconfirmed and unofficial, but it would be odd for this particular guy to call me on a GLBA question and make that up. It's possible, but I don't think so. So and Jeff wrote, it's going to take some dealers longer to get flown from a flagpole before it gets proper attention. I agree, except It's going to take, in my opinion, 4 dealers. And here's why. I've said this before publicly. The first one, everybody's going to say, that's not me. The second one, people are going to say, oh, okay. The third one, they're going to look and say, 3 strikes. And then on the fourth one, they're going to say, wow, this is really a thing. We should really do something about this. And so, again, if you haven't started, now's the time. Call any of the 3 of us. We can answer questions for you. But I can't do enough but to encourage you that this isn't going away. The FTC just by the way, this is, I guess, a third thing. The FTC just sent out another press release. They're hiring another 75 lawyers. Those lawyers are not just going to sit around, right? They're going to do enforcement activity. So be aware.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, Brooke. One thing that I just want to point out, based on that story, Tom, is it shows how small of a one minute infraction will actually open the doors for them to come in and absolutely take, not even if your fines end up being minimal, which, I mean, is there really a fine that's considered minimal? They're all pretty, large.
50,120 per violation is what the standard is. Nobody knows what a violation is, but go ahead.
Correct. But now, what about all the time and the energy for the audits that are taking place? It's not just a matter of, okay, let me write you a little check and send you on your way. We messed up, we're bad, we'll figure it out going forward. It's no, these people are coming in and saying, okay, we're going to pull files. We want to see this, we want to see that. You're going to be taking up this massive amount of time and energy for the dealerships. And oh, by the way, during the time in which we all know that profitability is starting to come down, we're dealing with a lot of other stuff in our business. Do you really want to take the risk of having them come in and taking up your time, your money, and your resources that, quite frankly, we don't have?
That's right.
So I think it's really important to realize that the one thing you said there, Tom, is like it literally took one complaint for them to come in and open the doors to 50 stores and audit them all.
And as people have heard me say before, if you handle your customer complaints, and customer and employee complaints, you're gonna handle 70 or 80% of your problems. And by the way, when the FTC comes in, they're not just going to look at one store if you have 50, right? And so I didn't get to this part of the story, supposedly there's going to be what's called a consent order that they will comply and what they will do to comply. Consent orders are signed written agreements. And Sandy's right, there is collaboration between the FTC and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. And so there is coordination between government offices, and they're going to have to consent to this. I've seen consent orders from 5 years to 20 years. And so it's very serious. And Sandy, yes, Brooke is correct about the new FTC report for data breaches. It has to be 500 names. And
hold up, let's rewind. Supposed to and doing it are two different things. Like, let's be very clear. Like, how many times we send a data breach and then they don't report it? So I am curious how they're going to hold them accountable when they don't report it.
If they find, it's just like everything else. If they find out and you didn't do anything about it, they're not going to be pleasant. They're just going to say, you know, take out your checkbook and let's start. And Sandy's right. You know, you don't want them coming in for wage an hour. There's all these regulations. So, I
agree with all this. Like, and I think that too often we think / believe or feel, whatever word you want to put in there, that, oh, this hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. No, Tom and you and I have talked about April. I think you and I have talked about this. There is a dealer group. There's one just down the street from me that's already been hit with it. There's another dealer group that it was a large dealer group, and they were also hit with FTC infractions. Right. So this is not something like, oh, it's just starting. Like, this has been going on over the last year. These two groups in particular both hit. So it's going to take bigger names until someone's like, oh shit, maybe we should do something about this now. I mean, I had I knew of a group that said, hey, well, we put Comply Auto on all of our sites, and well, now it's up and going, so we can just cancel everything. Yeah, good luck with that. Go ahead and do that and see how well it works, because that's a 30% for Comply Auto. It's only 30% of what you need to be compliant. So what about the other 70? So now you take that portion out. Who's holding everybody else accountable? Because if your whole thing is, once again, I'm just going to write a check. I'm going to check a box. We're done. I'm done with it. No, that's not how it works. Like, they are taking this very seriously, and it's going to be the internal people reporting you or a consumer reporting you. That is what I've seen. And Mike, to your point, in addition to the PR nightmare, dealers will incur with an investigation. We already have negative perception in the public eye. Never. Car dealers? Nah. All folks need is to hear the dealer was not careful and with their info and will light up social channels in ways we don't want. And not only that,
it's happened recently.
Oh,
like,
it's everywhere.
Plenty of enforcement. In fact, when I've been writing my articles recently, I used to have to come up with topics. Now all I do is kind of show who's paying fines this month. And I've been writing those articles now for like 3 or 4 months, and I put 3 dealer groups in each of the articles. So, I mean, I can't think of the 12 off the top of my head, but there's been at least 12 in the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. And Sandy, to your point about Department of Labor, that depending on the state where you're residing, where your business is residing, the DOT gets involved real quick, and they want you're almost to a detriment, but you're serving two masters of, well, the DOT says I can do this, but the OEM and Insera say I can do this, and they don't align at all. So which master you're going to serve? Well, DOT can shut me down. I'm probably more concerned about the DOT. So the whole Department of Labor, you don't want them going in there. And Tom, I know you've said this before, is, hey, do you really want to call that customer that has been with you for 30 years? You've served them, their mom, their kids, their niece and nephew. I'm like, so we didn't actually protect shit, to be quite honest. And now all of your information is on the dark web. So not only have you lost that business, you've lost generations upon generations, and all the referrals that they would have given you now is never, ever, ever step foot in that place, because here's what they're going to do. And do you really want to make that phone call? Because I sure don't.
Mm-mm.
Right.
April, coming from a dealer's perspective, talk a little about what else?
I think the other aspect that people always have to realize is this is not a fun, sexy topic to talk about, right? Like, it's not all giggles and here, let's talk about closing tactics. It's the stuff that people don't realize how important it is. Even when I talk to my general managers, right? People don't realize how important it actually is, but it impacts every single person. Put it into perspective. How many dealership groups over the lifetime history of the time have been fined to the point or had somebody come in to where it was so detrimental that store had to either shut down, close, or sell, right? How many have been fined so much? Do you think that doesn't impact the profitability for every person in the store? No, they're going to pass it along in the form of packs and different things to help pay for these types of things. And so it does impact every single person, from the janitor to the GM. It does matter to every single human. And unfortunately, like with the driver's license on the desk, that still happens all the time. Because that human being, that one human being, didn't actually realize how incredibly impactful and important it is to follow these rules, right? Because as a society, right, we throw out rules. We all have handbooks. Have you looked at your handbook? Did you even read it when you signed that you said you read it? No, we don't. We absolutely don't. I'll be honest, when I first started, I didn't. Over time I did, but I didn't out of the gate. We don't read that stuff. We're like, yeah, I know how to be a good citizen. There you go. Have a nice day. But now, right, you've got all these humans who really have no idea the implications of how something so minor of leaving a piece of paper on a desk can actually break your store.
Oh, in April, I think I told you this. If not, I'm going to share it now. Remember, I'm going to think how to say this without divulging the dealership's name. There was a dealership that I happened to be in at the time when I was consulting, and I went back and they had the pay plans of every single employee just spread out across the desk. I was like, nice. What are you doing? And this wasn't once or twice. It was like, I go, even from like an OSHA standpoint, like you've got to have that stuff locked up. And like, oh, we're fine. Don't worry about it. I go, okay, good luck with that.
Okay.
All righty then. Here's some social security numbers, all your pay plan, W-2 information, just sprawled across the desk. I was like, oh my God. And the sad thing, that's not the first time. And it's not the second time. It's not the third. It's not going to be the last time. It's really going in because the data breaches and those fines, honestly, to an extent, I won't say the fine, but the data breaches are inevitable. I mean, as you said, the Pentagon was hacked. And I'm pretty sure last I checked that we as dealerships don't quite have, the Windows Defender is not going to cut it for the Pentagon secured. Like there's a Norton antivirus. Yeah, that's not enough. I'm sorry, it's not. So it's just a matter of time. And when it comes to the OEM portion of it, OEMs, vendors, everyone's got to come to the table. And I mean, I have lost count of the number of times that OEMs have been hacked, and they take forever to let someone know. Oh, by the way, we just had 500,000
I think that's happened to Nissan. Didn't Nissan?
Nissan's been just twice this year. Twice. Yeah. Did a whole thing on that one.
They don't tell you. They really don't. They're supposed to, right? But they don't actually tell you. I mean, this happened. The only reason I found out about it was because I proactively had made a call to my insurance company, but my insurance company got hacked and didn't actually tell anyone because to them, because personal information didn't get hacked, they got hacked, but it didn't go down far enough to that level. They didn't feel that they needed to tell people. And they did the right thing. They proactively shut everything off to ensure until they could fix it and it was fine. So I'm not knocking from that standpoint, but again, it just goes to show how easily, how frequently. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the last 2 years I've had to change my credit card because I get a text message that says, April, was this you? No, it was not. Okay, we're sending you a new card. I mean, it's a pain in the butt, but you know why that's happening because I was hacked.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I think I know where the hack, like the insertion point of the hack is happening is at Apple. Because every time it's been my Apple card that's been the one that's gotten it.
That's interesting. Right when the chips came out, like
gut feeling. Yeah.
But no, to your point is
Tim
that
Cook is watching.
What was that?
I
hope Tim Cook is watching.
I know. Yes. If only, man. I would love that, Tim. I welcome that. No, it was right when the chips started coming out in the cards, and it's like, oh, the security, it's going to be great. In a matter of a month, I had 4 different cards. I go, I'm confused. Isn't this supposed to make it more secure? They're like, yeah. And look, I love American Express, love them to death. American Express, if you're watching, love you. Shout outs to you. And they took care of every single time. But I'm like, how does this keep getting hacked? And then you go into the second month, I was hacked another 2. So a matter of 2 months, I had 6 different cards. Mm-hmm. It was within 30 days of them, putting all the chips on the cards. I just go, I'm very confused here. And thankfully they took care of it. But if you're not somehow monitoring that, how do you know? Like I get a report, and LastPass has been hacked as well, but whether it's LastPass or whatever it may be that says, hey, Brooke, by the way, we saw this weird activity. Your stuff's on the dark web now. And a lot of times I'll hear, and this is what drives me bonkers. Yeah, it's just my email. It doesn't matter. Yeah, actually it does. It's just my phone number. It's not that big of a deal. No, once it is, that's someone's stealing your identity. No, it's not okay. It's not okay at all.
Bingo. And they're getting really good at figuring out how to manipulate people to get the information, right? Like they're getting really, 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 really good.
Yeah.
And that's how it's happening, right? People are getting hacked left and right because we fall victim into that. And I know this is kind of looking at it from the other side, but I think
Carson, I feel you on that one, buddy. The joys of entrepreneurship. You're like, well, good luck with that one.
Oh, best comment of the day. That's hilarious. But it goes to prove why this is necessity, and that how at risk we all are as dealers. We really are truly at risk of all these things, and it's important that we care enough to protect ourselves so that we're not subjected to this, because it really could be big. I mean, Tom has been the one who's told me over and over again. I mean, April, think about, even if you didn't get massively hit with fines, but you did get breached, and I have to provide, LifeLock or something, right, for people for a year. I mean, how much money is that? Tom, tell us, because to me, that was like, shake me out of my seat. No matter how good I am, no matter how much I try to protect people, if I get subjected to no fines but yet still have to do that, explain that to everyone, Tom.
Yeah, so a couple things here. So first of all, if you don't have cyber insurance, buy it today. Number one. Number two, know that it's a trick to try to get fines by the FTC or a government agency insured. So if you have a problem, that's going to come out of the dealership. It's going to come out of the dealership profits. It's not good. Your insurance agency is not going to pay that. But to answer your question directly, April, say you have one store. Let's just play the math game, right? Say you have one store.
I know I promised no math, but there's a little bit of math. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, there's math. And let's
facts, baby, because facts.
Facts. I don't have any feelings, just facts.
Emotionless body over there. Sorry, continue.
Sorry, Tom.
So let's just say you have 250,000 names between your CRM and your DMS. That's a very conservative number. Very conservative. Credit monitoring is $100 a month. If you have to buy credit monitoring for somebody, it's $100 a month. So if you do the math at 250,000 times 100, here's the number, 25 million. That's just in credit monitoring. That has nothing to do with damages as a result. I mean, big numbers. And so, I go into dealer group and I see dealer groups of 10 stores and they have $1 million of cyber coverage. Guys, 1 million's not going to cover anything. I mean, it'll cover something. It'll cover maybe the reputational damage. Hire a PR firm and tell you how to try to mitigate those things, and it'll do something. But gosh, I wouldn't want to be in a position to have 10 stores. That's 2.5 million names. The numbers just get staggering, right? And an automotive group up in Northern Virginia, Coons Automotive, just settled their class action as a result of their data breach. And you can go online and read about that. So, this stuff, it's not an if, it's a when. Yep. So don't get a case of the yets. It hasn't happened to me yet. These are really things you need to be proactive on. And as I mentioned earlier, anybody can reach out to any of the three of us to help with that. And by the way, vendors, this applies to you too, because you can get hacked, and I don't care what the agreement says between you and the dealer. They're not going to care if they have to write a check as a result of your data breach. You're going to get sued. That's just how it's going to roll. I don't care what the indemnification language says in the agreement. They'll argue about that in court or try to settle or whatever. So this really is a things roll downhill issue.
Yes. And one thing that we talked about kind of at length is not only two things. One, please, please, please work with your dealerships, vendors, OEMs, work with your dealerships. And I will also say dealerships, if an OEM is forcing you to do X, Y, Z, in April, I sent you this article last week, or this week, man, it was just this week. Holy shit. It was just this week.
Yeah.
And
it's printed right here.
There you go. There are certain things that OEMs, depending on your state, they cannot force you to do. So if they're forced you to do something, my first question would be, okay, is it legal to do this? Number 2, are they just extorting me? Number 3, is this something from a data breach? So what happens when you all get breached? Because it's just a matter of when, not if. How is the dealer and all of your clients, all of your customers, all of those people you've been in business with for 100 years or 30 years, whatever it may be, how are they protected? And so I can't remember all of the states that we talked about, but in particular, I know Arizona was one. I was like, when we spoke about it, I go, April, this one's yours.
And thankfully, Arizona is one of those, is a state that like other states are looking at to say, hey, they've done a good job of really locking it down, identifying it, saying, hey, it's not, this isn't one person's responsibility. If you decide to get in bed together, you're going to share that responsibility. And so that helps when we do sue you for not helping us keep things protected, because that is exactly, to Tom's point, what's going to happen, right? It's because that's not fair. Dealers don't know. We have vendors for a reason. If dealers could do it all on their own, would we pay the money we pay to vendors? No, absolutely not. We pay the money to vendors because we are not experts in some of these things or have the capabilities to do some of these things. So it is imperative that the vendors look at this equally the way that the dealer should be looking at it, and understanding the risks across the board for them as well. Because almost everybody, it's not just pushing data, it's push-pulling data, and how that's being done. We all know that there's still people, sending information just via straight email. So to Brooke, your point to say, oh, well, it's just my email, it doesn't matter. Do you know how much stuff is sent via email? So much. How many things we text message via text, right? Like personal information that we are just throwing out there. So coming up with secure things is going to be imperative for people to understand how we're moving customer data back and forth. And most vendors to this day are still doing it, old school, and that's not even getting into the ADF XML.
Oh, that's the next on my list. Don't worry.
That's before we even open that can of worms.
And that, once again, when we say everyone needs to come to the table, it is every single player in the auto space. So if dealers, I've definitely audited sites and they're not doing anything. And that's one of the questions they have when a customer comes on board is, what's your GLBA, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, what's that acronym? So there's still, I know there are multiple dealerships, as Tommy said in the very beginning, that very conservative number, I will call it, that dealers have not even started with this. But let's take it to the ADF XML portion of it. So if you're just joining, you're like, what the hell did you just say, Brooke? So anytime a lead gets sent over, and I don't care if it's from your site, from the tier 1 site, from a tier 2 site, from any of the other anyone that's sending you something in the CRM, CRMs are an email listener, which means it is not secure. So I don't care. And once again, unless you're Nathan at DGDG, because they use Salesforce and they actually have an API and it is secure, no one else is fully compliant, because all of these companies say, well, it's just the way, well, it's 20 freaking years old. Like, it's time to update. When someone comes in outside the industry and they're like, whoa, you guys still use ADF XML? So all that gobbledygook, you go into Vin Solutions or any of your CRM and you actually click in the XML lead and you can see all that gobbledygook. That's what it is. And not all the information is going to be there. If you have a very long email address, that gets cut off. If you spend all the time building your car online on a tier 1 site, there's a good chance, like really good chance, go look at it. Oh, look, price isn't there. Oh, look. Oh, it doesn't show up any of the packages that they included. Well, if you have an API, that's going to all come in and all the information is going to be there. But bottom line here is that so many different people have to come together on every part of the aisle, every freaking side of the aisle, and say, we need to actually fix this, because we are now putting our client, which is the dealership, at risk. And you're actually putting yourself at risk as well. So there's my soapbox for the day, ladies and gentlemen. There you go.
And so the logical question that dealers are going to ask is, okay, Brooke, so what do I do? The best thing, and here's I have a semi answer on this, is the best thing you can do. There's some customer data platforms that will encrypt the data to the dealer. So if you think about the customer data platform as like a hub, you can have all your vendors send the information into that hub. And then when the dealer gets it, it is encrypted. And so you can trick the system, if you will, to set that customer data platform out there so that the dealer can say, look, I did everything there was to do to protect myself. I can't, I didn't invent this ADF XML format, but here's what we've done to try to protect ourselves to the maximum extent. So that's something to consider when you're thinking about how your data moves. And a lot of dealers, as you both know, a lot of dealers don't know where their data is coming from and to, and how it's moving and how it's getting shared and what pixels are on the website and all that stuff that you guys do that you're an expert at that I'm not. But when it comes to the the customer data platform, that is one thing that's in the dealer's control that they can do to help with this problem.
To an extent, though, like, yes, does it secure things? And depending on the CDP, is it going to a clean room? Yes. But now you have a fragmented system where there might not be push-pull integration. So now you're going into CDP and you're going into your CRM. You update something there and it might not pull over. So now you're still working out of there. So it's such a fragmented, like, CDPs are great outside the industry, outside our industry. In our industry, there's still quite a bit of work because of the archaic technology that we have. As you got systems that you're still logging into 2 different systems, maybe just for that purpose, let's not forget the other 15 other systems you got to log into. Oh, right. I made a phone call. I made an email. Well, it didn't push over. So now that email is actually not encrypted because it went into the CRM, not the CDP. So there's so many different layers to this to understand. If you are looking at, hey, that's something that's going to really benefit us, great. Ask those questions. We've done quite a few shows on CDPs. Reach out to any of us. We can help you on that as well. But understand, is this actually securing the information, or is it just one way it's going to secure the information and never again? It's about
the dealer can only control what they can control, right? And so if you say to a regulator, look, everything is based on ADF XML, it's not encrypted, it's not secure, here's everything that can be done to do that, and we did that, then you're having a different conversation at that point than we didn't do anything. How about archaic management?
You know what, Paul, you got a point. It's true. And Paul, that goes back to the same dealership group I was discussing before, where they're like, hey, we can just take everything off. We don't need to worry about it anymore. Oh, we'll just leave stuff out. Like, you can't change stupid, unfortunately. I wish you could, but if you find out how to do that, let me know.
Paul, the 3 of us would like to put you on that project.
Good luck, buddy.
If you can work on that, we would really be grateful. So
yes, please.
One thing, and Tom, this idea though of like, okay, dealer, so let's go ahead and have the CDP, and even if I could get it to push the information, whether it's ADF or ADF XML or, it's done so archaically because the vendors are like, well, the dealers are too stupid. They're just going to keep paying us and not make us do these things anyway. So let's just stay on that. The real problem, and where I get real feisty about it, is they're the first ones to stand out and tell dealers, why are you not giving a good customer experience? Like, you awful dealers. You are just so awful to the customer. And I'm like, really? Have you sat in a salesman's shoes today? Have you sat in your shoes one day and looked at all these tools that you've, monkey wrenched together and tried to decipher what the communication even is with the customer, and then said, yes, shame on you, Mr. Salesperson, for being a bad customer?
Just keep your whole dashboard on a thumb drive.
On a thumb drive.
It's so sad. I remember having.
Hey, Jeff, then you have to leave it on an airplane. So,
Thank you, Wayne. But no, to Jeff's point is, when dealerships would just allow, and still allow, now this is not passing, they still allow, just use your personal Gmail, that's fine. I go, okay, Mr. Dealer, you understand what you're actually saying to your employees now? One, they're putting a massive security risk. Number 2, when they leave, they get to take all of their customers with them. Now, your name on the building, let's say Brook ABC Motors, or it'll just be Brook Motors at that point. We have got Brook Motors here. Now I'm allowing little Billy and Timmy and Kimmy and anything else ends in Emmy. They all get to take those customers, which should be 9, with them. And we all know how many times it's like, I'm just going to down the entire CRM list. I'm going to take it with me. Once again, not secure, but how are you locking that down?
Well, and that goes, Brooke, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they said they had 60 people. I don't remember if it was in their CRM or whatever it was, but all 60 were administrators, right? So, so I mean,
constant battle, Tom. Constant
Yes.
battle. Like that is my day. That is my life every day. Because to a manager, it's easier to just let them do it, and they can do it themselves, right?
Right.
Rather than them being the manager to manage the things. Oh, like don't even get me started. You just hit a hot button. Hot button.
Follow. Get some wine get some whiskey bourbon for her right now.
I know it's not even noon. Is it officially?
Well, it is in our time. So we got 12:41 and then 1:41 over in time. So Tom's time zone. Holy shit, I can't say that. But yes, it is. But it's so frustrating. I'll go in and I'm like, okay, how many people have access to now GA4? How many people have access to your Google Business Profile? How many people have access? Do you understand exactly what's happening? Because when this stuff breaks, some of it's not unbreak. You can't fix it. It's Humpty Dumpty is falling off the wall, and you cannot put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I mean, Google Business Profile. I mean, April, you watch this like a hawk. And I've told this story before because it's happened to me, but I'm technically not in the dealership anymore. So I'm using you as an example that you check it, it's fine. The next time you check it, you've lost. I believe it was the entire listing. Was that correct?
Yeah, we lost. So a couple major ones that happened. One in one of our buy sales, we had gotten the previous one, renamed it. We're all good. Life is going on. And about 6 months later, Google was like, oh, new business. Let's just put this one up. Brand new one, no reviews, no content, no nothing. And had I not caught it as quickly as I caught it, they said if 4 days had gone by, I would have lost it. And it's like, whoa, that's crazy. Another example was one of my stores that, we've had for a really, really long time. Google changed the name of it. The name of the store is Horn Mazda. One day I log in and it says Mazda of Horn. Right? And then there's these, my people like the GMs will get all frustrated. They're like, why is this broke? This is broke. And they think like, I'm like, yeah, it's called every day.
Welcome to my life. This is why I drink. Thank you.
Every single day that something is broken. Every day. Yes,
it is.
Much. I know.
And depending on when this happened, during 2020, obviously, Google, Facebook, everyone decided to cut back their support. So I remember working with a store, and one of their Nissan locations went into their other location. Like I can't even remember. But you had departments, you had everything was just all of a sudden screwed up. Now we didn't touch it. This was 100% Google just doing this, and it was locked down that only like two or three people had access to it, and so it was 100% Google. And Google just says, "Sorry, not sorry," and we don't know when it'll be fixed. It took, I think, 6 to 8 months before it was ever resolved. And that's the thing. Like depending on, even in a good support state of like catching it, it's gonna take a while. And now that's your number one free advertising tool. So I mean, we've got.
Well, it goes back to a lot of conversations I've been having in other places, like our weekly AI conversation that Tom joined us this week for. But that's why you still have to have humans as part of the AI strategy. Because part of the reason that Google is doing these things is because they've now plugged AI into it all. Well, the computer knows it's smart; it can just do it. So it thought that Horn of Mazda sounded correct. Whereas any human would have looked at it and said, okay, that's not right.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So
it's cousin, since we're in the Thanksgiving season, we can say that's cousin to Horn of Plenty, right?
Yes. Well, so I was having a discussion with my clients, and we were discussing, they wanted to have their group side up. And I go, great, but I go, logically, I see where you're going with this. You want to put all of your individual children's stories, yeah, let's go with that, into that. And unfortunately, Google isn't smart enough as a way of saying Google equals Google. It's because it's not a human looking at it and saying, wait a second, this doesn't belong here, or this does belong here, or whatever it may be. It is a robot that goes through and says, nope. And when you've done something it doesn't deem as correct, it's like, give you the big middle finger and says, I'm just going to make a brand new listing, and now you're screwed. And so there's all these little nuances to understand of how you're going about doing anything, and also who has access to things. Okay, is this rectifiable? I have a rough time saying that word. That's another story for another day. Resolvable? Let's go with that one.
I don't think we can say that on facts, not feelings. I think that's
man. After this week, I think anything goes. All right, we're going to go. what other takeaway or what else have we missed that we haven't discussed? I'm going to start with you, April, and then come to you, Tom.
I think to your point, we're all talking about it. And as my friend Tim McGraw says, let's go with a lot less talk and a lot more action. So, my last takeaway is, it's time for the action. It's time for the vendors to really reach out, find out who these people are, help the dealers get to the finish line. The vendors did a really good job coming to the dealers to help us with the GA4 transition, right? I feel like most people kind of jumped in to help, but as we moved over to this side, they're not. So it's action time. That's my big takeaway. Action.
Amen.
I have so many other things I want to say to this. I'm like, okay, the Carl girl in me is like got all these like little things I want to say.
Please check it out. It could be Google. Well, at this point, it probably is, Wayne. I wouldn't disagree with that. He said, please check out to see if a black van is outside your office, Brooke. Please check. It could be Google. That, or it could say like free. If it said free J's, though, I would probably get in. Let's be honest. That's kind of how I'd roll. Tom, up to you.
No, we all know the way to your heart is tennis shoes.
I may or may not bought 2 pairs this week. What's that story? Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm done for the year. We're good.
That's a line item on your financial statement. Right?
Depending on what state you're in, when you say like, give me J's, I'm just telling you, like there's certain states you might want to be careful in saying that if they don't personally know you, right? You're going to
This is true.
walk down and have a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's very true. And as always, a show is off the rails. You are welcome, everybody. So, we'll try to bring it back in here a little bit. Tom, what is one of the other things we haven't discussed that you want to throw down here?
I think it's with everything, which is communication. I mean, April, we kind of started with that. If you're a vendor and yes, Paul, communication. If you're a vendor and you're not compliant, send a memo to folks like April on a monthly basis on what you're doing to be compliant, so they don't have to call you and ask you what you're doing, because the regulations actually say that if you have a vendor that's not compliant, that you're supposed to switch vendors. And so if the dealer can rationalize staying with you because you're working on what you can do to be compliant, have good communication, by all means, return April's phone call, if you haven't already. But return the dealer's phone call, tell them if you're messed up, just say you're messed up. As an old employee of mine used to say, if you're scared, just say you're scared. Right. So just be clear and straightforward. I think that goes a long way to getting all of this together, so we can all pull together and get the problem solved. Agreed.
And honestly, for me, it's if someone is telling you that you're 100% compliant,
they're not. There's no such thing. There is no such. I have a 48-page book of every single law, rule, and regulation that that I've written over my 33 years or 34 years. You can't be 100% compliant on anything. And if you think you are, then I would tell you that you're not hearing what compliance is about and how you're supposed to look at it. If you don't audit, by the way, to see if you're compliant, you have no idea.
No. And it's just, once again, asking those questions. And so a lot of times as we had up here, I got to go find Brian Ortega's comment up here about saying his brain hurts. Like, yeah, 100%. And not that we intended that on a Friday, Brian, believe me, we did not intend that. This is such a crazy topic that just continues to, I'm going to say it's like an elf on a shelf. We're going into the holidays, so we're going to call it elf on a shelf. And it's just like sitting there. And it's like, would everyone please come together and work together? I mean, if you go back and watch the show or listen to it, whatever your preference is, you'll see that April actually reads straight from NADA who all is required to be compliant and to work with April and any other dealership. Yet so many just say, we're good. We don't need to do it, or whatever it may be. No, if you send any type of information to the website in any type of form, you have to comply. And that's just a portion of, if you have access to the backend site or the website, if you have access to the CRM, if you have access to anything that has PII in it or sending PII, you have to comply. That's the slowest you're going to probably ever hear me talk. Please, for the love, comply with it. And if there's not, to April's point, there's probably a reason why they're not signing that document. So those
PII is not social security numbers or driver's license. PII is name. Like literally, you don't have to have. People hear PII, they think, oh, well, I don't have anything to do with social security numbers. PII is not social security numbers, people. That's one little oomph I want to tell you, because that's something I get kicked back a lot. They're like, oh, well, look, we don't deal with credit applications or send social security numbers. PII is not just social security numbers.
It's also the definition changed in the new regulations, and it's also email addresses and cell phone numbers and all that. And I want to channel as my last thought, unless we're going to keep going. My last thought is I want to channel an old employee of mine whose name was Hank. And Hank always said when I asked him to do something that he didn't want to do, he'd smile. He had a great big smile. He said, I don't have to agree, but I do have to comply.
Yes.
Yes, you do, Hank.
It's so true.
Right.
And are there any other questions? I'm looking at the time here. I know we're coming up on the hour here. So are there any other questions? And we got some incredibly brilliant people all here today that you need the answer to it. Or if you're watching on demand later, throw the chestins. That's question and comments all together. I'm just going to go. Apparently I need more of this is what we need here. Throw your questions.
What's in there, Brooke?
Actually, it's just water. We're recovering from a long MRC with a lot of alcohol, so we're on the all liquid water diet right now, hydrating. But throw them in whatever, if it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever it may be, and just say, hey, I've got a question about this. We'll go back and answer them. So I know that it's Friday. We're going in almost into the holiday here, so maybe you couldn't catch it live. I will forgive you just this once, though. That's okay. Go back and ask any question you want, and we'll make sure that we'll answer it. And if for some reason we don't know it, we'll be sure to get that answer for you. So anything else we're missing here, ladies and gentlemen?
Going once.
Going twice. Sold to a weekend of awesomeness. Everyone, as always, thank you so much for being a part of this. I know that you all have an option to choose and listen and consume content where you want. I super appreciate you all being here on a topic that, as April said, is not necessarily the sexiest topic ever, but it is so needed to discuss it and to get people compliant. So just thank you so much for that. If I don't talk to you all, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. It is next week, I believe. Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
I don't know what day it is right at this point, but have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, as always, find a way to serve today. Find a way to just better somebody else's life. It can be something as simple as a kind smile, opening a car door. We have Thanksgiving around the corner here, and Thanksgiving, there's so many ways to go serve. And Wayne, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of it, sir. Super, super appreciate it. And with that, everyone, we will actually be off next week because it is a holiday, and you guys don't want to see me on a Black Friday. You want to be selling or shopping, one of the two. So with that, everyone, we're going to get out of here. And as always, just have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend, and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.